I am Chris Alems in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to a new edition of Eco Africa. Human-caused climate disruption is now a fact of life. This week, we're looking at examples across the continent of transformative change, the many ways that economies and societies are reacting to today's new reality and adapting to ensure that the way we live becomes more sustainable. Here's what's coming up.
Fighting energy poverty in Somalia with solar power. A women-only gem mine in Zimbabwe. And in Ghana, how citizen science is helping reduce marine plastic pollution.
We'll begin on South Africa's west coast, home to one of the world's most expensive shellfish, abalone. The coastal communities there play a key role in meeting the growing global demand for this luxury seafood. But that leaves the local fisher people caught between the need to make a living and the need to protect marine life.
In the waters of Doringbai on South Africa's west coast, divers are on a mission to protect what they call white gold. The world's most highly priced shellfish feasts on kelp and could be mistaken for a mussel. But the perfectly camouflaged abalone is in fact a snail with grazing habits that help to keep the kelp ecosystem in balance. Its population is on the brink of extinction due to poaching and illegal trade with Asia, where it is a lucrative delicacy. In Doringbai, people are trying to provide alternatives.
And we're having 2 people off the farm currently in Gordons Bay at a diving school training to become commercial divers. And then we will take out another 2 people from the community to do diving for us. And that will also help us to curb the poaching process.
Samuel van Rooyen is the CEO of the Doringbai Abalone Farm. The company strives to provide a sustainable and legal alternative, growing the snails on land and in the ocean. An abalone snail takes up to 10 years to grow to size before being harvested and dried for export.
So the customer loves if the abalone have a long shape, especially the thickness of the abalone is also playing a role.
The farm is the main employer in the small fishing town, with a permanent workforce of 52 people breeding, growing and preparing the snails for market. The company is 35% community-owned through the Doringbai Development Trust. The idea is to keep local residents on board with sustainable fishing.
If you steal from your share, at the end of the day, when your share will be declared, will be smaller. And I think people start understanding their business role as a shareholder outside in the community. So they start protecting our sea life now.
The fate of the abalone is closely linked to socio-economic inequalities in South Africa. Here in Hamburg and Cape Town, people have been living off the sea for generations. But the government reductions of quotas to protect the remaining stocks left small-scale fishers with close to nothing. Fishers like Warren and his colleagues continued going out to catch abalone regardless.
It's dangerous, but what can we do? We risk our lives just to feed our families.
A good day I can get maybe 2,000 rand, and the diver get maybe 40 or 50,000.
Yeah, I have thought about quitting multiple times. I've considered. The only thing that's keeping me is that I don't have a solid income.
Yeah, we don't break in, we don't hurt no one. We just take what we think is gonna sustain us.
The poachers earn just a tiny share of the illegal trade. But over the past 17 years, the total value of illegally harvested abalone from South Africa was estimated to be $890 million. Regular law enforcement has not managed to stop a trade that's become increasingly violent and corrupt. Kimon de Greef is a journalist and researcher who says abalone poaching has reached an all-time high.
That obviously has some ecological impacts. Generally, they aren't super well understood because the decline happened so rapidly and the ecological functioning of abalone wasn't something that had been sort of closely monitored before. Marine biologists in South Africa would have been focusing on other fisheries or other ecosystem dynamics.
Moreover, other factors such as climate change have impacted the kelp ecosystem, making it hard to pinpoint the effects of the declining abalone populations. Sustainable farming is one way out of the crisis, but so far it is not competing with the booming illegal market. Customers in Asia pay up to 2,000 Hong Kong dollars, more than 200 euros, for one single abalone. So you won't find many local restaurants here with abalone on the menu. Among the precious few is Fine in Cape Town.
We get our abalone from Lambert's Bay, further up the west coast. Yeah, all their farming practices and everything are completely sustainable. We can get them in live in the shell. We can use the liver and the entrails and everything. So there's zero wastage. We're going to bake the abalone in kelp. The natural glutamates bring out the umami flavor from the abalone. There's a lot of negativeness attached to it, and I think it's our sort of job to educate the general public and our guests as to the more sustainable farming practices that we do have. How are you enjoying the abalone?
Really delicious.
Thank you.
Didn't expect that.
Back on the Doring Bay abalone farm, we meet Ashley, who provides a glimpse into how important this sustainable solution can be.
I have passion for my job. I love what I'm doing. It changed my life in a lot of ways. You have friends show you wrong things and so on. When I get this job, I start to separate myself from them, and now I'm a lone worker. I'm a family man. Take care of my family, take care of my kids.
Hopes are high that the abalone farm will grow and reinvest in the community.
If it can develop, I think it would help create jobs for more people in the community, and so we can live, we can go further.
And the prospect of fishing communities having more secure livelihoods should also bring dividends for the abalone population.
Our next report takes us to Ghana. The country generates a staggering 1.1 million tons of plastic waste every year, but less than 10% of that is collected and recycled. That's a pretty shocking figure. But there is hope. A number of grassroots organizations are coming together to see how they can help make waste management more efficient.
Beach cleanups can be back-breaking work, seemingly endless and futile. But this is a mission with a difference. These volunteers on Pram Pram Beach, east of Ghana's capital Accra, are not just collecting all the waste. This group, called Plastic Punch, have a plan. They're sorting, measuring and cataloging all the items as a weapon to fight back against the scourge. Richmond Kennedy Kwaku organizes these cleanups, often with volunteers from nearby communities.
So when volunteers come around, community members stick to shoes. If you are picking shoes, if you are picking plastics, you pick only plastics. If you are picking toothpaste, you pick only toothpaste. This way we are able to separate the recyclables from the non-recyclables, because we want to demonstrate to the community that there can be some value from these things rather than finding them in our waterways.
Waterways such as Accra's Korle Lagoon have been turned into aquatic waste dumps, with only a tiny fraction of the city's trash being properly collected and recycled. Besides poisoning the land, the debris is flushed into the ocean, breaking down into microplastics, getting into the food chain and destroying aquatic ecosystems. And it's from places like Korle Lagoon that a good deal of the trash washes down to Pram Pram Beach, where Plastic Punch is working. They see their data collection, a form of citizen science, as a way out of the mess.
We are aware that beach cleanups alone are not a solution to the plastic pollution menace, because just after the next high tide, there will be more trash coming in. However, it serves as a very good activity to collect relevant data. And what we are concentrating on today is to understand what the pollutants are, what is polluting, and also which brands, which companies are polluting.
Armed with the data, Kwaku's team can begin the crucial next phase, helping local authorities to understand the waste flows and figure out how to stop it ending up in the ocean.
So with their data, we are able to tell where the waste is coming from and the type of waste that is coming into the shore. And then the ones that are recyclable and then the ones that are non-recyclable. So this informed us as the assembly how to plan for the management of the waste.
The citizen scientists are also a key part of a much bigger puzzle. Ocean conservation is one of the United Nations' 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but efforts to combat marine plastic pollution have been held back by a lack of reliable data. Pram Pram Beach in Ghana is a microcosm of a worldwide problem. It's been estimated that we have dumped up to 200 million tons of trash into the sea, most of it indestructible plastic, and some estimates say the rate of increase could triple in the coming decade. The UN Environment Programme says the only solution is to fundamentally change how we use plastic. Thanks to groups like Plastic Punch, Ghana became the first country to monitor plastic debris density according to UN guidelines. The data is loaded onto a UN platform containing the world's largest citizen science dataset on marine litter. Officials of Ghana's Statistical Service said the effort is very useful.
They are not only cleaning the beach, they are also compiling data that would let policymakers appreciate the value of their activity, one. Two, also appreciate what we are doing to ourselves in terms of littering the beaches to the extent that, one, it doesn't encourage tourism. Two, it affects aquatic life.
Being able to present pristine beaches is of course also vital to Ghana's billion-dollar tourist sector. Meanwhile, for citizen scientists like Richmond Kennedy Kwaku, the hard work has only just begun. He wants to see their data turned into meaningful change.
Now that we understand the problem, to solve it, we need solutions, we need political will, we need investment into waste management system, into alternative packaging. We need a lot of awareness. We are listening to the science, we are listening to the ocean, and what the results are giving us only makes sense, and we need to act now and fast.
These citizen scientists have cleaned the stretch of Pram Pram Beach, and the trash data has been logged. Their hope is that if we all really understand what happens to the plastic we use and discard, then we can truly begin to free the oceans of our trash again.
Now to Zimbabwe. Gemstone mining is a multi-billion-dollar industry that leaves a trail of devastation in its wake, from deforestation to habitat destruction and even human rights abuses. But it can be done responsibly, and we found a mine where not only is the impact on the environment kept to a minimum, the workforce is made up of women only, and they are paid a fair salary.
Splitting the rock takes strength and practice, but Tonotsai Kaunda knows what she's doing. Drilling, hammering, and howling massive stones, this is everyday life for the female miners in Karoi. They're looking for aquamarine. Today, they get lucky. I like working with shovel, hammer, and chisel because I've realized that ever since I started working with these tools, I'm fitter and I don't get sick as much as I used to before I started working here. That was 3 years ago. Since then, the 49-year-old widow has learned a lot about gem mining. And this mine is special because it is sustainable. The aquamarine deposits are often deep inside the rocks. But as manager Rubitsai Gwinji explains, the methods used here are as low impact as possible.
To make it more sustainable, we concentrate more on using chisels and hammers than on blasting, so that we won't leave a very large footprint on the environment. And then there is no use of chemicals during the mining process. And there's minimal use of water because it's basically taking the aquamarine rock out of the mother rock that harbors it. And then we clean it, if necessary, with minimal water.
Here in northern Zimbabwe, water is scarce and has to be used sparingly. So the women don't take water from the Dugutsa River, but source it from a disused mine where rainwater collects. They also need it for the vegetable garden they've planted next to the mine. Some of the vegetables also go towards assisting underprivileged families. And we also provide the elderly with vegetables, those in the community who can no longer fend for themselves. Working in the fields is another part of Kaunda's job. She enjoys dividing her time between gardening and mining, and she likes the fact that only women work here. They earn the equivalent of 180 euros a month, better than most jobs in the region. The vegetable farm is also sustainable. For example, the women use organic fertilizer made from cattle manure, and they practice crop rotation to enrich the soil, growing vegetables such as kale, onions, and carrots. In the past, the main crop grown here was tobacco, but climate change means that they are no longer reliable rainy seasons and harvests have suffered. More and more people in Karoi have turned to gold mining. Here on the Dudzunga River, many illegal gold miners are women. We can see that the women at Zimbabwe have comfortable lives. We wanted to join them, but we were told that they were no longer hiring. It's good for them as they no longer have to ask their husbands to give them money for school fees and other necessities. At least they are independent. As in other African countries, mining in Zimbabwe is regulated, but controls are irregular. Very few mines in Africa are sustainable. Zimbabwe is an exception. So there's little data available about environmentally friendly and fair mineral mining on the continent, but experts do know it's costly.
There has to be an awareness that once a mine is closed, renaturation needs to occur as extensively as possible, and reserve funds have to be set aside for that.
Dafür müssen Rücklagen gebildet werden, und das ist auch in den meisten Ländern eine gesetzliche Auflage.
A challenge even for the small-scale gem mine. Zimbabwe co-founder Patrick Sidonga is regularly on site. After 5 years, new deposits are rarely found. The mine still isn't financially viable, but he remains optimistic.
We're making partnerships with companies that focus on empowering sustainable mining. I mean, that's the future. Everyone wants to know where everyone wants to be able to trace where their stone is coming from. And mines like ours are going to be the mines of the future.
The women are already taking renaturation measures and planting trees once a month. They've planted 1,800 seedlings, but many haven't survived. The bananas and papayas have thrived, and the women will soon be harvesting them. They're carving out a more sustainable future, not just in the gem mine, but here in the fields too.
From northern Zimbabwe to coastal Somalia, we are pretty used to charging our phones when and wherever we need to. But imagine living somewhere with no electricity. What would you do when battery runs out? That's just one of the challenges people face who lack access to energy. It's a major problem for marginalized communities around the world. Our reporter visited the Lower Shabelle region in Somalia to see how energy poverty affects people's lives and what can be done to alleviate it.
Ayo Ahmed Osman is pleased, especially since she's only drawing water from this well today to show how hard it used to be just to fetch the precious resource for use at home.
We used to walk more than 3 kilometers from home looking for water. And we'd bring jerry cans to carry it. The water was salty and dirty. We would wash clothes near the well.
But big changes have come to the little village of Abaidaksen, The 1,000 residents of this peninsula at the gates of Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, finally have electricity. It's even solar-powered.
Charging our phones used to be a big problem. We'd walk a long way to Jazeera to charge them and pay 50 US cents. Some of the poor couldn't afford that. But now our homes have power 24 hours a day.
Most people on the peninsula live from fishing, like Mohammed Abu Abdi Haji. His catch used to spoil in the heat before he could take it to the market in Mogadishu. The solar-powered freezers help the fish stay fresh longer.
I don't worry about the 2 fish I caught because the solar company Tomarso brought the freezer where the fish will remain until a driver comes to pick them up. I'm sending them to market and expect to sell them for $30 each.
The electrification program here could serve as a model for positive changes in the country on the Horn of Africa. Somalia was long viewed as a failed state.
This is a developing country recovering from insecurity and civil war. Around the year, Somalia is sunny, and this need is to be exploited. There are Somali companies, Somali private companies, that have already started to invest in solar energy.
The company Tarmaso is now promoting one of these projects in Abaidaksan. This mini-grid solar plant with a 10 kilowatt capacity lies at the heart of it. It should provide all of the roughly 150 houses with electricity. And she is making sure that it all goes to plan. Jahwir Muhammad is a trained electrical engineer. The plant provides the village with electricity around the clock, even if the sun isn't shining.
During the day, it will be charging the batteries and give an energy to the cooling system that we support the shop and the fisheries people in Abaydahan with. And during the night, it will supply the village with electricity that we have been used during using the batteries.
Now, it's even easier to get water. An electric pump draws water from this well on the mainland to the peninsula, where it collects in this water tank and is distributed to the households. Now, the water comes right out of the tap. Ayo Ahmed Osman no longer needs to schlep it all the way when she wants to cook for her family of 7.
Now I can get some rest and have tap water in my home, pumped by solar power. We used to fetch water and carry it here from far away. Now I have clean water to drink.
On to the next installation. The mini-grid company's 4 technicians first met with skepticism. Some doubted whether solar power was as good as conventionally generated electricity, or they were superstitious and feared that the technology could harm them. Others were simply worried about the costs.
That's why in the first 2 months we didn't have a lot of people. After that, we decided that we won't take an installation money from the people. We will just take the monthly expenses, that is $10 per month.
This family decided to jump on the bandwagon. A light bulb is being installed, and a fast television is opening new horizons.
In the last 30 years, we didn't know what was going on in the outside world. But after we installed solar power and started watching TV at home, that's changed.
The mini-grid costs about $70,000. International donors contribute 60% via Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. The World Bank covers the remaining 40% as a loan. The mini-grid will turn a profit for Tarmaso in 2 years' time. Jahwir Mohammed is training new solar technicians for the company. Such experts are urgently needed as Somalia, with foreign aid, is increasingly counting on solar energy. At sundown, socializing outdoors used to come to an end in Abaidaksan. But thanks to the electricity stored in the mini-grid's battery, there is now light after dark and a lot of activity.
Now Tamarso gives us electricity and installs lights on the roads. All of our children and old people are playing and chatting outdoors. We are grateful.
The solar project on Abe Daxon is serving as an example to the region. 300 more households nearby are now getting their own solar-powered mini-grid.
That's it from us here at Eco Africa this week. I hope you've enjoyed our stories and they've given you something to think about. But if you have something to share with us, then write us at eco@dw.com. We love hearing from you. For now, it's goodbye from me, Chris Elims, in Lagos, Nigeria.